¿A dónde está papi? 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 ¿A dónde está papi?
Welcome to the Tuesday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Tuesday. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Heat. Hey, how's it going? Michael Hassler. Welcome, everybody. Sorry about that. At least the music worked. At least the music worked this time. Howdy. Taco Tuesday, indeed. Gary Bennett, welcome. That's right, join the YouTubes. Join the YouTube, subscribe, and like the stream and all that. Alright, folks, we definitely have a lot to cover, and gotta keep on schedule. Conscious Canuck, welcome. Also, folks, on that note, join the Discord, okay? Do the Discord thing. At the end of next month, there will be another community movie night. That will be appropriately holiday themed. Also, if you join the Discord, you get notifications on anything that happens on the channel. And it's just a chill place to be. Alrighty, folks, we got a lot of ground to cover. Here we go.
A new report came out in the Daily Beast this week talking about Matt Gaetz's increasing problems in the House of Representatives, and they're actually much worse than anybody had previously thought.
Oh, no.
Not only does the Daily Beast suggest that the investigation with the House Ethics Committee, being run by Republicans, by the way, into Matt Gaetz, is getting bigger and broader.
You see, like, that's still a thing, by the way. I completely forgot that this was going on.
But Matt Gaetz also appears to be universally hated, not just in the halls of Congress, but apparently also back home in his state of Florida. So there's a lot to unpack in everything I just said, so let's start at the beginning. Matt Gaetz in Congress, right? According to the report, you've got tons of Republicans in the House of Representatives that are still, led by Kevin McCarthy, just pissed off that Matt Gaetz caused all of this drama this year for apparently no other reason than Matt Gaetz loves to cause drama. So you now have all these Republican members of Congress that just loathe Matt Gaetz. Here's a couple of quotes from the Daily Beast piece.
Allegedly. I was totally fried this past Saturday. 11 hours of streaming subscribers. Wow. Have no fear, folks. If you missed the movie nights, guess what? There's going to be another one at the end of the next month, probably. So there's nothing to worry about.
The first one is, there aren't a lot of people who, are going to go out of their way to defend Matt Gaetz. I mean, he's a pretty diabolical character. Now, that lawmaker was not named, but we do have a quote from Republican Representative Don Bacon of Nebraska, who said, "The
So, like, if Republicans are saying all this stuff, why? First of all, why are they saying it anonymously? And second of all, isn't it like a verdict on the kind of people that they have in their party? Alio with the 12 biddies, thank you.
anger is pretty well with him. I just think there will be long memories because he did serious damage to our House conference." Recently, going on to the second point, during an interview with Fox News, Kevin McCarthy actually suggested that the investigation into Matt Gaetz has grown and gotten broader. He said, quote, "Once that ethics complaint comes forward, he could have the same problem as Santos, and I think the conference would probably be better united to move forward and get this all done." And he said that the party won't heal if there's no consequences for his actions.
Yeah, like the thing is, like, it's actually not really like a problem that Matt Gaetz is the way he is. The problem is that he put the party at risk. Ultimately, that's the issue, right? Heat with 13 biddies, ground level news with a tier 1 sub. Thank you so much. Welcome. Thank you. That's a 4 months. Cosmic Seeking, welcome. It is indeed Tuesday. Someone should yell at Gaetz, put the job down. Yeah, so the real issue for Republicans is not that he's a the real issue for Republicans is not that he's a scumbag. And it's not that he's had some questionable acquaintances, and it's not that he has questionable interactions with a minor person, allegedly, according to what we know so far. That's not the issue. The issue is that he stepped out of line in the party.
So, he goes on to say that the investigation is broad, and specifically, one of the things the House Ethics Committee is looking into is whether or not Matt Gaetz was sitting there, showing off photos of women that he had relations with to fellow colleagues in the House. Is he just showing like, hey, look, here's a picture of this nice woman, this is her Facebook profile, or was he showing pictures from the act? Was he showing lewd photographs of these Facebook profile, or was he showing pictures in the House? Of women that he had Gaetz was sitting there, House Ethics Committee is looking into is whether or not Matt Gaetz was sitting there, showing off photos of women that he had relations with.
Are you serious? I mean, like, it's really not surprising, to be honest. Like, this kind of tracks for this kind of character. This tracks. This tracks. And it said he was elected by Floridians. No, that's a plus for the Republican Party. That's a good thing. Imagine having relations with Matt Gaetz. Yeah. Imagine having relations, sexual or otherwise, with Matt Gaetz.
To fellow colleagues in the House. Is he just showing like, hey, look, here's a picture of this nice woman, this is her Facebook profile, or was he showing pictures from the act? Was he showing lewd photographs of these women? I don't know. But the committee apparently heard from enough members that Gaetz was showing some pictures that now it's a thing, and it's apparently a pretty big part of that investigation.
Follow-up question. Were they women or not? Like, I mean, like, underage.
So could this lead to a Santos-like situation where Matt Gaetz, after a damning ethics report comes out, they vote to expel him? It seems a little far-fetched to me, right? I mean, after all, Matt Gaetz did survive that Department of Justice investigation. They didn't bring any charges against him, unlike, of course, Santos, who is facing criminal charges. So,
Mouselander, welcome. I don't care why Gates goes down as long as he fries. True. Echo Wrestler Dragon, welcome. We got a Mandolin redemption. Okay. Welcome, Yellow King. Yeah, we'll try to squeeze that in there.
just a bad apple report from the House Ethics Committee, I don't think that's going to be enough to get enough members to vote to kick Matt Gaetz out of Congress, even if they are still mad about what he did to Kevin McCarthy. So I don't think that Matt Gaetz is going to end up losing his seat just because everybody's pissed at him and this investigation could show that he's a scumbag. You're unfortunately allowed to be a scumbag. It's when it crosses that line into criminal activity that you have a problem, and the DOJ apparently didn't see enough there, apparently. So, you know, I don't think he's going to get kicked out. But even if he doesn't...
Yeah, so, like, wait a minute. If that's the case, if there is, like, no, like, criminal act, are they just gonna, like... I don't see much consequences then, right?
He's got a problem. Because Matt Gaetz has, of course, been rumored to be one of the people that might be running for governor here in the state of Florida, since Ron DeSantis will be term limited. He's got 3 years left. But Gaetz, it has been rumored, is the person that thinks he can take over the state next. And if that is the case, then Matt Gaetz may want to look at the polls, because the polls show that a new poll from Florida Atlantic University found that statewide, not in his deep red district here, but statewide, Gaetz only had a 21% approval rating, with 57% of voters disapproving of him. Notably, Gaetz was polarizing even in his own party, breaking almost exactly even among GOP voters. So it's about a 50-50 split even among Republicans about whether or not they like Matt Gaetz. So you add all of these things together. He's hated in Florida. He's hated in Congress. They've got that investigation. These things together don't look like, you know, the makings of a very long political career. I could be wrong. I've been wrong in the past, but it's all shaping up to be a perfect storm that hopefully could end up leading to Matt Gaetz being nothing more than another Fox News host who happened to serve in Congress for a couple of years.
Yeah. He pissed him off. The goals will get him one way or another. I take my comment back. It's only a happy story if Gaetz gets consequences. True. I'll see it. I'll believe it when I see it.
That would be the most likely path. After all, Matt Gaetz does love the spotlight. He sure seems to love those cameras. So I imagine that leaving Congress would actually benefit him so that he could go on and become the TV star that he so clearly wants to be. Hey, everyone.
Yeah, wait a minute. Polls don't vote, right? So we shouldn't take these polls into account? We shouldn't listen to these polls? Yeah, you would have to be consistent, you would have to say, well, I don't know. Polls aren't votes, right?
I can't imagine this will not be in 200 ads across the country, in the fall for House members. This is Chip Roy from Texas, 21st District. Republican.
For the life of me, I do not understand how you can go to the trouble of campaigning, raising money, going to events, talking to people, coming to this town as a member of a party who allegedly stands for something, allegedly stands for reducing.
Allegedly. Allegedly. Because actually these people have no principles whatsoever other than power.
Spending, allegedly stands for eliminating debt,
But they don't.
securing the border.
Well, I don't even know if they care about securing the border or not. As long as they get to be xenophobic towards brown people, I think it's all fair game to them.
Strong military, ending.
Our military at this time has the literal budget to defeat God himself. So yeah, I don't know what that one's about.
The wokeness that is killing and corrupting our schools.
True, dude. You know what? Wokeness has entirely dismantled the military. Okay, it's done, folks.
Our kids, and then do nothing about it. One thing. I want my Republican colleagues to give me one thing, one, that I can go campaign on and say we did. One. Anybody sitting in the complex, if you want to come down to the floor and come explain to me one material, meaningful, significant thing.
Why can't I go to my constituents and run on where are my fascisms? Okay? Not a one. Not a single one.
The Republican majority has done besides, well, I guess it's not as bad as the Democrats. Because that reminds me of the line from Patton when he said, well, you won't have to say, well, I was shoveling crap in Louisiana. Because
What?
I don't remember that. I assume he's talking about a movie, not actual, he hasn't read any history. But I guess the idea is I don't want to be here, and at least you can say I'm not doing something that is theoretically worse. Like I'm in prison or something in Louisiana. I'm not sure about the Patton thing, but let's not get distracted by that. That is a great ad for Democrats. But let's just put up, I was just curious as to the different legislation that Congressman Roy has put out there, just to get a sense of what that would mean if he actually was to get some of his bills passed. Is that the top one there? Is it? It's providing, making appropriations for the Department of Defense. Okay. The FACE repeal, COVID Origin Transparency Act. Veterans access to direct primary care. I don't know what's in this, but that sounds pretty good.
Sounds good, yeah.
He introduced all these.
It's probably privatizing the VA.
Exactly.
Higher Education Reform and Opportunity Act. Does that prevent people from getting college debt relief? Expressing the sense of the House of Representatives.
Yeah, I'm gonna assume that that's exactly what that means. In fact, we don't have to go that far. Yeah, to amend the Higher Education Act of 1965 to provide for fiscal accountability, to require institutions of higher education to publish information regarding student success, and to provide school accountability for student loans and other purposes. Wait a minute. Why would the school have, school... Isn't that, the loan people who deal with that? What does that even mean?
that the majority of NATO members have failed to meet their defense spending
God.
commitment, and the United States should not continue to subsidize the security of the countries that, I don't know, he needs to come up with a catchier name for that. No taxpayer funding for SARS Act.
Bit of a throwback there.
Yeah, expressing the sense of the House regarding the relationship between certain obligations and NATO. Impeaching Joe Biden. That's one. He wanted one. Let's see. Passport Sanity Act.
Okay, hold on. The Passport Sanity Act. I have to look this up. Oh, it's just it's just like an anti-trans bill. To prohibit the Secretary of State from issuing a passport, passport card, or consular report of birth abroad that includes the unspecified X-gender designation and for other purposes. Yeah. Okay. It's just like a transphobic thing.
Reciprocity ensures streamlined use of Life-Saving Treatments Act. I don't know. I mean, he's been busy. But which no ESG at TSP? What does that mean?
It's like no, woke investing with like the thrift savings program, and like it's like no wokeness and mutual funds.
There you go. I mean,
Wow, fighting the good fight. Solving America's problem.
he's the Sister City Transparency Act. I'm sure that's the anti-immigrant.
I looked into the Passport Sanity Act, and would you be shocked to find out that that is about the reversing the, I think there was a Hillary Clinton era decision which allowed people to be unspecified gender on their passports.
That's insane. That's insane.
He's a very serious person. But you know where Chip Roy, you know what his previous work, he was the chief of staff to Ted Cruz. That's where old Chip
What
comes
an office,
from.
jeez.
Yeah. And I mean, he's mad, by the way, that's not all that he's mad about. He's mad about Mike Johnson allowing this. He's mad that they allowed the continuing resolution, the temporary continuing resolution to pass. He was on the steps of the Capitol yesterday, I think, and Marge Green, she came by and put in her 2 cents, saying that this is it. This is Johnson's last hurrah. They gave him one pass, and that is it. They're not going to stand for this anymore. So. What he's basically saying is you're on notice, get ready.
Shut the government down next time.
They're going to shut the government down. And if you don't shut the government down, I mean, basically he was threatening him, saying, we're going to take you out like we took out McCarthy. Because
Remember, wasn't I literally talking about that not too long ago? That if this guy plays ball too much with the Democrats, they're going to try to get rid of him.
Because they did take out McCarthy, ostensibly for the same reason.
MAGA Mike?
That he had, of course, there was all this bad blood and, Matt Gaetz and had all these issues with McCarthy. There were many reasons why McCarthy went down, but that was ostensibly the reason, was that he was going to pass a continuing resolution with more Democratic votes than Republicans, which is what just happened.
I mean, I wonder if they're going to be able to amass the same numbers this time around for Johnson, because, Burkett was upset, really, apparently, because McCarthy made fun of God.
Right. They all had their petty reasons.
That's hilarious.
And Nancy Mace sounds like she had some very Kevin McCarthy specific issues with Kevin McCarthy.
Apparently. And she also does whatever she does. Nancy Mace does whatever she does is purely for attention. And in fact, there was released this past week, another interesting little tidbit, some notes and directives from her office, which for her staff, which apparently they hate her, that everything that she does is about getting on television, every single thing. And she says this blatantly, this is what I do. So whatever she needs to do to get attention, she will do. And being a member of the Crazy Eight really did work for her. Everybody knows who she is now.
Totally. I hope she's on the Kristen Sinema trajectory, and by this time next year is a green has left the Republican Party for.
Could be.
I mean, it would be
surprised.
nice to see, a Green Party member of Congress. I think that's where they should start anyways. So if it's Nancy
absolutely.
Mace, it's Nancy Mace. I'm not sure where this leaves us. I guess we have like some type of reprieve, at least holiday, federal workers don't have to go through the holidays
Right.
On some type of furlough or something like that. Of course, the anxiety that they have and the inability for our government to do anything, you can't do long-term or even midterm or short-term planning if you don't know if the government's going to shut down for 4 months starting in January or February. Like, how do you go out to contractors? How do you go out and start programs? How do you hire, I don't know, you can't fund daycare centers to the extent that we're doing that anymore. And have them say like, well, you may not have funding come,
Right, we
February
can't
or March.
guarantee anything.
I mean, it
yeah,
really is
beyond
a
tomorrow.
disaster.
Well, look at what's going on in the Senate. I mean, with the military hold. I mean, this guy Tommy Tuberville and his wingman now, Mike Lee. They are turning the whole thing into chaos over there. It's as bad as Chip Roy and the rest of them, and Nancy Mace and Matt Gaetz in the House. And this is the governing of the Republicans. You have to wonder if the American people are paying any attention, which I don't blame them if they're not, because it's just.
Chances are the answer to that question is probably not a whole lot. Because, I mean, like, if the majority of, like, the population was looking at this, like, seriously looking at this, I mean, like, the only natural, like, rational conclusion to, like, to derive from this is, like, this is an absolute clown show. This is a circus. This is an absolute circus.
So awful. But if they are paying attention, what are they seeing here? I mean, this is, I'm sure some of them are getting off on it. The hardcore MAGA people love this stuff. This is Trump's America. But, anybody who's still halfway sane has got to be looking at this going, my God, these people are, I mean, they appear to be acting like children. I mean, they really do. It's a case of massive arrested development.
It's going to be interesting. I wonder how much this resonates with the American public. I mean, I suspect at the end of the day, when we get in terms of, from an electoral perspective, it still ends up being, I think abortion rights is still your primary thing. But we're talking, what are the implications marginally for congressional seats?
No idea. No idea, to be honest. I guess, like, the only question I have is, like, will Democrats capitalize on that or not? It's by design. Everyone is too tired working 2 jobs to make rent. True. It's very true. Plus, it's not like having the 2-party system the way it is right now. It's also by design. And whether it's intentional or not, it doesn't really matter. But a byproduct of the way this 2-party system functions, or rather doesn't function, is apathy. All right, folks, we gotta do the mandolin riff. Also, this might give me a second to go grab my sparkling water. So let me grab my my mandolin and my sparkling water. I think I also found like a good chord guide to actually have like to actually be able to play in a key without having to like mess around and figure out what goes where or what chord goes to what. So yeah. This time I might actually be able to make a riff even faster. If you can believe that. All right, give me 1 second, folks, and I will be right back. All right, folks. Gotta make sure that everything is tuned up. I figured out what the tuning is supposed to be. All right. It's gonna be close enough, right? See if we can figure something out with our little cheat sheet over here. Okay. Ah. That doesn't sound right. It's close. All right. That's close. Yeah, that sounds good enough to me. What is this one? Does this even match? No. That's not part of the There we go. There. Okay, that's a riff. All right, that's a riff. I think. I don't know what you guys think, but that sounds like a riff to me. It took us a second, but we got there. We got there. One of your strings sounds out of tune, but yeah, that was good. I couldn't quite pick it up. It's supposed to be. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to check it later. Or maybe this tuner's not that great. Where's my, well, I just lost my pick. I don't know what I did with that. Oh well. Can you tune harmonically? I'm not that... The thing is, like, if the other ones aren't in tune, it doesn't really do me any good. Supposedly, that's okay. Yeah, you're right. This was out of tune. It's this chord that feels out of tune, this one. Picks, much like lighters, tend to disappear into another dimension. True. Ah, hey, look at that. I'll be damned. We figured it out, folks. Conscious Canuck was correct. Ha! There we are. Much, much better. Okay. There you go. Oh no. Folks, the mandolin fell. So I'm convinced. Now I'm pretty sure that this is out of tune. 5 years of tuning instruments at a high school. Nice. All right. I'll have to check the rest of them, but and no, I didn't fail a year. Ontario High School has an optional 5th year for advanced placement studies. Nice! AP studies. This one's a little off now. I met a couple from Ontario yesterday. They seem nice. Safety and security does wonder for complexion too. There we go. All right, we fixed it, folks. Okay. Now, I think that sounded like a riff to me, okay? I don't know about you, but it sounded like a riff. It sounded like it went together. So I'm going to go ahead and say that that's a riff, okay? Good ear, by the way, Conscious Canuck. I don't have, what is it, perfect, not perfect pitch. Yeah, perfect pitch where I can pinpoint it. I mean, I can tune to the, I can tune to the notes that are already there, but if those are wrong, then it's gonna be off. Like it's gonna be not, it's gonna be in tune but incorrectly. Would you ever consider doing a voice session, a voice chat session with music on Discord? Maybe others could play along. I mean, that might be something. I think that like the only thing that I would have to work out The only thing that I would have to work out on that is whether or not there is a delay. Whether or not that there's a delay between like the internet voice chat or whatever. But other than that, I think that's like the only thing that I would have to see. But I don't have perfect pitch, but I can send harmonic distortion down to about 0.2 hertz. Jesus. I didn't think about that. I think I tried doing something like that. I think I tried recording a cover of a song, and the problem that I kept having was that the music was completely unsynced from the microphone. Like, this microphone isn't perfectly synced, not naturally. I think I've had to finagle it to make the audio and the video sync. I've had to mess with it. Hopefully it syncs okay, and it doesn't look too bad, but I've had to mess with it. This isn't the natural audio, like, signal just being direct without being messed with, because I think there's a delay, much like how there's a delay when you are doing stuff over voice chat. What are you drinking? This is soda water. Unfortunately, I couldn't get to any sparkling water, so this is a vanilla cream Virgil's vanilla cream soda. I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, it's actually pretty good. Never noticed otherwise. See? That's good. That means I did my job, okay? If you didn't notice, then nothing to see here, okay? If you didn't notice, nothing to see here. That means I'm doing my job. I had to spend hours finagling the voice sync to the video because the signals and whatnot. Yeah. Everyone's internet connection to the server has a different latency. It's very difficult to sync. Yeah. That's the only concern. Or, I mean, I would have to do a solo act, essentially. I would have to do a solo act, okay? It would be like a virtual concert, in the sense, it would be like a virtual show, where I would have to have everything set up, between like a vocal mic, not like, I mean, you could use this as a vocal mic. It's not really meant for that, but I guess you could. I would probably use this more for my guitar. I could put this, I could have two mic stands. That is something that I have. And I could have my other actual vocal mic somewhere over there. And I could do an acoustic show. I could do a show by myself. But that's a whole other thing. I love that the gears are turning. A Difficult Truth is a band. A Difficult Truth is a band before it was this. I love that the gears are turning. Yeah, I mean, these are ideas that I could totally do. All right. In my humble opinion, I think that I think that I did fulfill that channel point. I think I did make a riff. Now back to the boring stuff, right? Like the news. All right, I need to bring your attention to this story. This is actually a pretty important story. The Supreme Court is about to hear a case that could ban wealth tax before they even exist and threaten the federal ability to collect money more broadly. This is a summary, so we're just going to go through the summary really quickly and then go through the article. Even though this argument isn't grounded, the plaintiffs in Moore versus the U.S. say much of the logic behind taxing profits is unconstitutional. Imagine saying that taxing profits is unconstitutional, but also getting like handouts from the government to subsidize corporations. That's okay, right? That's fine. Even though this argument isn't grounded in law, the conservative court could side with them. If they win, it'd be much harder for the government to tax profits because they argue that it's unconstitutional to tax profits before those profits are even realized. If the Supreme Court gives the plaintiffs a decisive enough victory, in this case, it could also endanger numerous other existing taxes that rely on the same underlying logic. This case is going to be heard December 5th, which is next week. The Supreme Court will soon hear a lawsuit that seeks to kill a leading proposal to reduce wealth inequality in the United States even before that proposal becomes a reality. During her 2020 presidential campaign, Elizabeth Warren proposed a 2% wealth tax on Americans worth over $50 million. Imagine making such a stink over a 2% wealth tax over people who are 50. Imagine having worth more than $50 million and making such a poop storm off a 2% wealth tax that you're going to essentially move a lawsuit all the way up to the Supreme Court to fight this. The idea was that rather than merely taxing very wealthy people's income and leaving their accumulated capital intact, the new tax would gradually chip away at massive fortunes and start bringing wealth inequality under control. 2%. Warren, of course, did not become president, and congressional Republicans would endorse appointing Lucifer to lead the Treasury Department before they would allow such a tax to become law. So the idea of a wealth tax remains a pipe dream shared by many in the Democratic... Sorry, this is not what's being debated at the Supreme Court, okay? This is not what's being debated at the Supreme Court. This was her idea. Sorry. Just don't mind. Just ignore that commentary. So, the idea of a wealth tax remains a pipe dream shared by many in the Democratic Party, but with no chance of becoming law anytime soon. Nevertheless, the December 5th Supreme Court will... On December 5th, the Supreme Court will hear a preemptive strike on the very concept of this. The plaintiffs argue in Moore versus U.S. have little basis in law, unless you think that a list of long ago discarded laissez-faire decisions from the early 20th century remain good law. And a decision favoring these plaintiffs could blow a huge hole in the federal budget. With no Warren-style wealth taxes on the while there's no Warren-style wealth taxes on the books, more plaintiffs do challenge an existing tax that is expected to raise $340 billion over the course of a decade. Jesus. But Republicans also hold 6 seats on the nation's highest court, so there are some risks that a majority of the justices will accept the plaintiffs' dubious legal arguments. And if they do, they could do considerable damage to the government's ability to fund itself, which to them is a good thing. More involves a fairly basic tax accounting concept realization. Ordinarily, the federal government does not tax income until it has been realized, which most of the time means that someone purchased an asset, sold it at a profit, and now must pay income taxes on those profits. As a general rule, investors are not taxed right away when their assets gain value. If an investor buys $1,000 worth of stock in company X and that increases to a value of $1,500, they pay no taxes on that gain until after they sell or otherwise dispose of the stock and earn a profit. If the investor does sell their stock for $1,500, they will pay income taxes on the $500 in profit. This rule, the Supreme Court explained in Halvering versus Horst in the 1940s, founded on administrative convenience. It is often too difficult to determine how much an asset is actually worth until the asset is sold, especially if that asset is anything other than stock in a publicly traded company. So the requirement that profits ordinarily must be realized before they are taxed prevents a situation where investor cannot figure out how much they owe in taxes because they don't know the specific value of all their assets. They're trying to get to neo-feudalism, which is complete crap. Another way of putting it, this is ANCAP / like libertarian / like libertarian ideology manifesting itself to its natural conclusion, right? Huge wealth inequality doesn't end well, also known as the French. Yeah, I mean, like, hey, listen, this is gonna get resolved one way or the other. That's for sure. Additionally, the realization requirement helps prevent a situation where a taxpayer owes a significant amount of taxes on assets they cannot easily sell and doesn't have any other source of cash they can use to pay the taxes. But while no taxation without realization is typically a rule in federal taxation, it's not always the rule. Partial owners of some kind of businesses, including partnerships, S corporations, and some foreign corporations, often tax on the company's profits before they sell their stake in the company, or otherwise receive any profits in form of a distribution or dividend. Securities dealers are also sometimes taxed on unrealized investments. For most of the last century, Congress has been allowed to determine when unrealized gains are taxed and when taxation of these gains will be delayed until after the asset is sold or the investor otherwise realizes those gains. In most cases, Congress has chosen to delay taxing appreciated assets until realization. Again, this rule makes sense because it is often difficult to determine how much an asset is worth until it's sold, but the Constitution does not prevent Congress from taxing unrealized gains if it chooses to do so. The plaintiffs in Moore, however, claim that it is unconstitutional for the federal government to tax profits before those profits are realized. This case is widely viewed as stalking horse against Warren-style wealth taxes, as it would be impossible to tax wealth as opposed to merely taxing the income generated by wealth. If the Constitution were to prohibit taxation of unrealized gains on the very assets that Warren-style proposals target, but a sweeping decision in favor of these plaintiffs could also endanger numerous other existing taxes, forcing the entire government to scramble as hundreds of billions of dollars worth of anticipated tax revenue is suddenly declared unconstitutional. Congressman Gary Palmer, thank you for the follow. The specific tax challenge by Moore plaintiffs is a provision of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the law signed by President Trump in 2017, which imposed a one-time tax on certain investors in foreign corporations. Before the Trump tax bill became law, the U.S. attempted to tax U.S. corporations' overseas income. Under the old regime, however, corporations could defer taxation of their foreign profits indefinitely by creating a foreign subsidiary. Income earned by these foreign subsidiaries would not be taxed until it was repatriated into the United States, giving companies a strong incentive to hoard money overseas and away from U.S. tax collectors. By 2015, U.S. corporations the honorary Something tells me they're not actually the congressman. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, okay? But something tells me they're not actually the congressman. A a 11-minute account. Okay. By 2015, U.S. corporations were keeping an estimated $2.6 trillion overseas to prevent this money from being taxed in the United States. The Trump tax bill largely gave up on taxing U.S. companies' foreign assets in the future. Corporate money kept overseas is now generally immune from taxation, even if it is brought to the U.S. But the Trump tax bill also imposed a one-time tax on U.S. investors in foreign corporations in order to offset some of the lost revenue resulting from this new tax regime. Under this one-time tax, certain investors in foreign corporations must pay a percentage of the money that the corporation has kept overseas, even though the investor has not sold their stock or received any of that money as a dividend. This one-time tax, which investors may pay in installments over 8 years, is expected to raise $340 billion by 2027. The plaintiffs and more are U.S. investors in a company that provides supplies to farmers in India. In 2017, these investors paid $14,729 in additional taxes due to the one-time tax revision in the Trump tax bill. Then they sued to get this money back. The specific details of this very complicated change to the U.S. tax code are not especially important, although for reasons discussed below, they could matter a great deal if the Moore plaintiffs prevail. The most important detail to understand if you want to get your head around the Moore case is that the plaintiffs and their lawyers successfully identified a tax on unrealized gains, and that gives them a vehicle they can use to claim that taxes on such gains are unconstitutional. In order to understand the legal arguments in the Moore case, one must first understand the two darker periods in American history: the 1787 debates over how to form a durable union between slave and free states, and the Supreme Court's Lochner era, a period when the justices frequently embraced far-fetched interpretations of the Constitution that benefited entrenched wealth and capital. Yeah, I mean, you mean right now? The Moore plaintiffs claim that taxes on unrealized income violate a provision of the Constitution that states that direct taxes must be apportioned among the several states. This meant that if, say, the state of Maryland contained 6% of the U.S. population, any direct tax enacted by Congress must collect exactly 6% of its total receipts from the people in Maryland. I can see several problems with that, right? It's not impossible to determine the value of assets because the holder of the assets already knows their value, so it's possible. In addition, taxes are only on the delta profits made in that fiscal year, not the total value of the asset. Yeah, so it's possible. It's also under Congress's purview. Rich people aren't going to starve or anything. True. But rich people are literally Smaug the dragon. This direct tax clause also incorporated the Constitution's infamous 3/5 compromise, so enslaved people were counted as 3/5 of a person whenever Congress had to calculate how much money it could raise from an individual state. Of course, this clause raised one fairly obvious question: what on earth is a direct tax? The unsatisfying answer to the question is that no one knows, and the framers themselves had widely divergent views on what this vague phrase might mean. As legal scholar Bruce Ackerman wrote in 1999 Law Review article, this provision was included in the Constitution largely to offer a symbolic satisfaction to constitutional delegates concerned with the slavery question. Among other things, the direct tax clause served as a fig leaf for anti-slavery Northerners opposed to the explicit grant of extra representation for Southern slaves, because it also suggested that white residents of slaves would pay higher federal taxes than residents of free states. According to Ackerman, the framers largely avoided discussing what the word direct actually means because more debate on the meaning of direct taxation might destroy any hope of a deal that could bring northern and southern states together in a single union. For much of American history, the direct tax clause lay dormant, and it certainly wasn't understood to prevent taxation from unrealized income. Indeed, in Collector versus Hubbard, the Supreme Court held that it is competent for Congress to tax annual gains and profits before they are divided among the holders of stock as afterwards. That's an explicit declaration that taxes on unrealized incomes are permitted. That's right, they own the government and they make the laws. Like I said earlier, they're trying to usher in neo-feudalism. The wealthy don't want they want to answer to the government. They want to be the government so they can set whatever rules they want. Yeah. Yeah, it tracks. It tracks. I mean, like, look how many more wealthy people are trying to like run for Congress directly. Like Vivek Ramaswamy, Donald Trump. These are oligarchs that instead of like buying government like they normally would and just be done with it, they're just actually just straight up running for president or running for Congress or whatever. And I suspect that that's going to probably continue. I mean, like Vivek Ramaswamy basically said, like why he made the argument, though not in a direct way, but he basically made the argument like why are we going to vote for these like Washington the swamp kind of rhetoric? Why are we going to vote for those people when you can just vote for me? Like I'm not the government. Running for office is seen as a shortcut to power for those who are not wealthy enough to be their own country. Like Leona said, only the little people pay taxes. But then the Supreme Court reversed course in Pollock versus Farmer Loan and Trust in 1895, holding that a tax on investment income is a direct tax that must be apportioned among the states. As as a practical matter, Pollock made it impossible to tax investment income because taxable investments are not evenly distributed among the residents of the many states. The Pollock decision was widely criticized as poorly reasoned, and eventually sparked an entire constitutional amendment, the 16th Amendment, which was enacted in 1909 in order to overrule Pollock. That amendment provides that Congress may tax incomes from whatever source derived, thus abolishing Pollock's ban on taxing the proceeds from investments. Indeed, Pollock is best understood as part of a wide-ranging effort by conservative justices to impose strict limits on the government's power to distribute the interests of capital while simultaneously giving the courts unprecedented power to protect capital's interests. In the first 6 months of 1895, the court handed down 3 cases which destroyed Congress's ability to tax the rich. Pollock gutted Congress's powers to regulate business and gave the Supreme Court's blessing to labor injunctions. The court orders requiring unions to end strikes and similar labor actions. These 3 cases arguably marked the dawn of the Lochner era, which is named for a 1905 Supreme Court decision that imposed strict limits on both the federal government and the state's power to enact laws seeking to improve workplace conditions for workers. Phenomenal. The Lochner era ended in 1937 after a 4-year fight between President Franklin Roosevelt and far-right justices who relied on cases like Lochner to strike the New Deal programs. Many Lochner-era cases are now taught to law students are examples of how judges should never behave. The plaintiffs, so now to bring it all back, the plaintiffs and more are represented by Andrew Grossman, an adjunct scholar at the right libertarian Cato Institute, and David Rifkin, a Republican lawyer known for defending torture during the George W. Bush administration, and for filing one of the first lawsuits claiming that Obamacare is unconstitutional. Grossman and Rifkin's brief is a love letter to the Lochner era. Their argument rests largely upon decisions that were handed down between 1895 and 1937, and the linchpin of their argument, Eisner versus Macomber, a Lochner-era case interpreting the 16th Amendment that has repeatedly been repudiated by more recent Supreme Courts. By more recent Supreme Court decisions. Man. Imagine having to, like, perform mental gymnastics using cases from, like, the late 1800s to try to say, like, certain taxes are, specifically wealth taxes, are unconstitutional, and attempt to preemptively prevent Congress from making wealth taxes. Indeed, an early section of their brief opens from a quote from Justice Stephen Field's concurring opinion in Pollock, an anti-tax gerrymander that claimed that if Congress were allowed to enact an income tax, then it would inevitably lead to a war on the poor against the rich. Field was arguably the most strident proponent of laissez-faire social Darwinism in the Supreme Court's history. So opening a brief with a Stephen Field quotation is a bit like beginning a political speech by citing Ron Paul or an opening economics paper from quoting Ludwig von Mises. Don't post as other people online. Yep, bye-bye. Because this country is always skewed towards rich white guys. True. In any event, if the Moore case were being argued during the Lochner era, then Grossman and Rifkin would have very strong argument that their client should prevail. Macomber, a 5-4 decision, mostly joined by pro-Lochner justices, said that the enrichment through increase in value of capital investment is not income in any proper meaning of the term. That conclusion closely tracks the reasoning of Pollock, which was supposed to have been overruled by the 16th Amendment. It also mirrors the Moore plaintiffs' claim that unrealized gains may not be taxed. Unrealized gains may not be taxed. But as legal scholars Ackerman, Joseph Fishkin, and William Forbath argue in an amicus brief, this language in Macomber is best understood as short-lived judicial resistance to the 16th Amendment, which exhumed the logic of Pollock, and regardless of why these Lochner-era justices handed down such a confused decision, Macomber has repeatedly been repudiated by the post-Lochner Supreme Court. Thus, in Horst, the court said that the rule that income is not taxable until realized is founded on administrative convenience instead of the Constitution. In Halvering versus Griffith in 1943, the court said that Macomber's reasoning is limited to the kind of dividend they're dealt with. Macomber held that an investor who benefits from stock split, an event that does not change the value of investment itself, may not be taxed because of the split. And in Commissioner versus Glenshaw Glass in 1955, the court said that Macomber's narrow definition of income was not meant to provide a touchstone to all future gross income questions. This is all bullshit, is effectively what it's saying. As one federal court explains in 1954, even as to income derived from capital, the Eisner versus Macomber case has been limited to its specific facts. So Moore should not be a difficult case. The plaintiffs rest their suit on a nebulous provision of the Constitution that is as relic of an age when the U.S. enslaved people, and they rely on the discredited Supreme Court opinions that have been repudiated by the court itself or by a whole damn constitutional amendment. Regardless of whether it's a good idea or a bad idea for Congress to tax unrealized income, or to tax wealth itself for that matter, the Constitution primarily leaves it up to Congress to decide what America's tax policy should be. The Moore plaintiff's approach will be familiar to anyone who studied the Lochner era, the age where the court routinely struck down laws not because it violated the Constitution, but because 5 justices deemed unwise, improvident, or out of harmony with a particular school of thought. If the Moore and plaintiffs prevail, the immediate impact is likely going to be a huge hole in the federal budget. Again, they challenge a tax that is supposed to raise $340 billion in revenue. Such a decision would produce a new wave of litigation. As the Justice Department warns in its brief, a decision for the Moore plaintiffs would require the government to adjudicate a flood of refund claims brought by other taxpayers who paid the Trump's tax bill one-time tax. And these claims would raise complex statute of limitations and similar questions because the tax in question was first paid in 2017. And then there's the problem of severability. When a court strikes down one provision of a broader statute, it must ask whether the remainder of the law can be severed from the unconstitutional provision and thus remain in effect, or whether Congress would have preferred for other provisions of the broader law to fall with the unconstitutional provision. The Supreme Court typically applies a strong presumption in favor of severability. As the Supreme Court held in Murphy v. National Collegiate Athletic Association, in order for other provisions to fall, it must be evident that Congress would not have enacted those provisions which are within its power independently of those which are not. But there are strong arguments that Congress would not have enacted at least some part of the Trump tax bill if it knew that one-time tax issue and more would fall. After all, the whole purpose of the one-time tax was to offset some of the costs of no longer taxing U.S. corporations overseas. No longer taxing the U.S. corporations' overseas income. And if the old regime governing taxation of foreign corporate income must be reinstated, that will trigger countless of other lawsuits. The government will likely attempt to collect taxes that were outlawed by the Trump tax bill, but that would suddenly become mandated by law once again. And numerous businesses would suddenly be hit with unexpected tax bills that could severely harm their operations. Indeed, the severability injury may be even more complicated. When Congress passed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017, it used a process that imposed a $1 trillion cap on how much the bill could add to the budget deficit over the next decade. So there's a decent argument that if Congress had known that the bill would have increased the deficit by an additional $340 billion, it would not have chosen to enact the tax law at all. But if the entire Trump tax bill struck down, that would mean that millions of taxpayers would potentially need to litigate whether they paid the right amount of income tax between 2018 and 2023. Some of these taxpayers would be hit with surprising new taxes that would seriously harm their finances. Others would receive unexpected windfalls that they did nothing to earn. And the federal government would potentially be thrust into an extended period of uncertainty over how much money it could keep, how much it could collect in back taxes, and how much it would have to pay for obligations. These are very good reasons, in other words, why the post-Lochner Supreme Court has historically been cautious about mucking around with tax policy. Federal budgeting is a complicated and politically fraught process that literally has implications for every single American. That is a very sort of process that could be conducted by elected officials and not by black road wizards with a vendetta against Elizabeth Warren or just they're just there to be agents to protect capital. That's all. It's not necessarily just against Elizabeth Warren, but just overall, they're there to protect capital. Anyways, yeah, this is pretty bad. This is pretty bad if they end up ruling in favor of these of the plaintiffs. That would be very bad. Supreme Court has surprised us in the past, so who knows? Maybe this is just a bridge too far, and they won't go for it. But that remains to be seen. Well, we're screwed. Not yet. Not yet. We'll see what happens with this case. It's definitely a very important case to pay attention to. Switching gears really quick, Pence told January 6 special counsel harrowing details about the 2020 aftermath, warnings to Trump. Speaking with special counsel Jack Smith's team earlier this year, former Vice President Mike Pence offered harrowing details about how, in the wake of the 2020 presidential election, then President Trump surrounded himself with crank attorneys, espoused un-American legal theories, and almost pushed the country towards a constitutional crisis. According to sources familiar with what Pence told the investigators. The sources said Pence also told investigators he's sure that in the days before January 6th, when an insurrection happened that was encouraged and applauded by Trump to stop the certification of the election, he informed Trump that he still hadn't seen any evidence of significant election fraud. But Trump was unmoved, continuing to claim that the election was stolen and acting recklessly on that tragic day. Like, what an absolute coward. Like, he, at the time, couldn't be bothered to speak out publicly. This is only because investigators are talking to him. What an absolute coward. Like, this doesn't make Mike Pence a good guy, right? Like, I know, like, all the libs are going to be like, wow, he's doing the right thing. It doesn't matter. He stood by Trump the overwhelming majority of the times. And it's only when push comes to shove that we're getting the real story, right? Because of party loyalty, not cowardice, speaking out would have hurt the GOP. I mean, one could say it's the same thing, right? One and the same. Like, you can't be you can't be bothered to speak out and do the right thing because of some loyalty to your party that supersedes the literal, like, country itself that you are supposed to be the vice president of. It's only now that the GOP is shattered that he's speaking out. Yeah, also, not only that, it's been already a couple of years, but not only that, like, he's speaking to investigators. Like, he can't lie about that. He can't lie about, what's going on. I mean, I guess he could, but he'd be in trouble. Trump did insult and degrade Pence. Yeah, and it didn't do anything, right? Like, he's still... anyways, he's still behind... I'm pretty sure that he's... he stood by Trump the entire time. That's my point. The sources said Pence also told investigators that he's sure that in the days before the insurrection, he informed... so we want to... Trump was unmoved, continuing to claim the election was stolen, acting recklessly on that tragic day. Pence isn't clever enough to get away with lying. True. Pence is the highest-ranking current or former government official known to have spoken with the special counsel team investigating efforts. Mother told him he can't lie. Efforts to overturn the 2020 election. What he allegedly told investigators, described exclusively to ABC News, sheds further light on the evidence Smith's team has amassed as it prosecutes Trump for allegedly trying to unlawfully remain in power and erode public faith in democratic institutions. Pence could take the stand against Trump should Smith's election interference case go to trial, which is currently slated to occur in March. As described to ABC News, much of what the former vice president told Smith's investigators mirrored, and at times restated verbatim, comments he has made himself previously publicly. Questions from Smith's team repeatedly focused on a book Pence published last year, with investigators apparently seeking to have Pence confirm under oath an array of post-election stories and opinions that he included in the book. Yeah, like, and instead of like, man, phenomenal, right? Instead of like, I don't know, making more public statements, he decided to write a book about that. That's his public statement. He decided to write a book and sell it and make money and grift off it. Nice. But speaking with Smith's teams behind closed doors, Pence also offered previously undisclosed anecdotes and details showing how his longtime friendship with Trump unraveled in the final weeks of their time in the White House, including Pence's repeated warnings to Trump about the then President's push to overturn the election results. Sources said that in at least one interview with Pence, Smith's investigators pressed the former vice president on personal notes he took after meetings with Trump and others, which investigators obtained from the National Archives. According to the sources, one of Pence's notes obtained by Smith's team showed that days before Pence was set to preside over Congress, certifying the election results on January 6th, he momentarily decided that he would skip the proceedings altogether, writing in the notes that there's too many questions and it would otherwise be too hurtful to my friend. But he ultimately concluded that he had a duty to show up. Speaking with Smith's team, Pence insisted his loyalty to Trump at the time never faltered. My only higher loyalty was to God and the Constitution. Sources said that investigators' questioning became so granular at times they pressed Pence over the placement of a comma in his book. When recounting a phone call with Trump on Christmas Day of 2020, Pence wrote in his book that he told Trump, I don't think I have the authority to change the outcome of the election. So, in other words, Trump was asking him to do this. Trump was asking him to do this. Man, how scary could it? How scary of a situation could it be if he had chosen the other route, which is to say, like, publicly that this election is not, even though he doesn't have the power to do so. If he made a public statement saying that he's not going to certify this. Insulting Trump is a good start in my book. Well, Trump doesn't, Pence doesn't even insult Trump, to be honest. And even if he did, I don't know what that'll accomplish, right? But Pence, and like also, even if that was the case, it doesn't free him from this responsibility of what he did, right? But Pence allegedly told Smith's investigators that the comma should have never been placed there. According to sources, Pence told Smith's investigators that he actually meant to write in his book that he admonished Trump. I don't think I have the authority to change the outcome, suggesting that Trump was well aware of the limitations of Pence's authority on days before January 6th, a line Smith includes in his indictment. In April, ABC News reported that Pence had just testified before a federal grand jury in Washington. 2 months later, in June, Pence launched a bid to challenge Trump as the Republican Party next presidential candidate, but Pence's campaign lasted only 4 months. Sources said that Pence acknowledged to Smith's team that even before Election Day on November 3rd of 2020, he was aware that the Trump-Pence ticket was expected to take a big early lead in the polls that would then gradually fade as more mail-in ballots were counted. And the first few days after everybody knew this. Everybody knew this. I literally did a YouTube video on this. That this was probably going to be the case because of just the situation of so many people using mail-in ballots, and overwhelmingly those mail-in ballots were going to be Democratic. Like, it was just known that this is going to be a fact, especially after Trump for months kept saying that these mail-in ballots, not use these mail-in ballots, and railed against the mail-in ballots because it's a vehicle for fraud or whatever bullshit he was pushing during those months before the election. Not many of his supporters were going to use the mail-in ballot. It was just like logic that the overwhelming amount of mail-in ballots were going to be Democratic. Like, everybody knew this. Everybody knew this. And Trump tried to manufacture this idea that, like, oh, well, the election's rigged because you're going to see we're going to be way up top, and then all of a sudden these ballots are going to start coming in, and they rigged the election. Anyways, at the same time, Trump privately instructed Pence to dig out any potential fraud or irregularities in the election, telling Pence their campaign was going to fight in court and elsewhere. And elsewhere. What does that mean? We're going to fight in court and elsewhere. Pence allegedly told Smith's team. However, sources told ABC News Pence said he grew concerned when within days of the election, Trump began ignoring advice of credible and experienced attorneys inside the White House, instead relying on outside attorneys like Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell, who pushed notions of widespread election fraud, and, as Pence allegedly told Smith's team, did a great disservice to the president and a great disservice to the country. But, like, you are the vice president, arguably a very powerful figure, and you did absolutely fuck all. Yeah, oh, okay, the court of public opinion, and I guess elsewhere. There's no doubt that Trump knew what I thought about those attorneys, but he still listened to them, Pence told the investigators, according to the sources. In his interview with Smith's team, Pence recalled a meeting that he had alone with Trump in the Oval Office in December 21st of 2020, as the campaign's legal challenges across the country were failing, but Trump was continuing to claim that the election was stolen and had begun urging insurrectionists to gather in Washington, D.C. for a big protest on January 6th. When Trump privately asked Pence what they should do, Pence said he told the then president that if nothing changed, you should simply accept the results. You should take a bow, travel the country to thank supporters, and then run again if you want. And I'll never forget, he pointed at me as if to say that's worth thinking about, and he walked away, Pence recalled to investigators. However, 2 days later, as noted in Smith's election interference-related indictment against Trump, Trump retweeted a memo titled Operation Pence Card, which falsely asserted that the vice president could, among other things, unilaterally disqualify legitimate electors from 6 targeted states. When Pence was on his way to Colorado for Christmas vacation and saw Trump's post, he turned to his wife and said, "Here we go," he recalled to Smith's investigators. As Pence described it to investigators, according to sources, he understood that by December of 2020 that the Trump campaign had run out of legal options in its fight to remain in power, but he urged lawmakers to raise potentially credible allegations of fraud during the upcoming proceedings of January 6th, when Pence would still be presiding over Congress to certify the election results and decide whether to reject any votes. And Trump still does doubt the election? I don't know. Because, like, it's been reported that even he himself knows it's all bullshit. He knows these claims of fraud don't really have much don't have merit. It's hard to say. It's hard to say because, like, Trump's narcissism dictates to him that he has done nothing wrong. But I don't know. I don't know if he's like an actual true believer because there's documents going around that proved he doesn't believe that there's any actual like credible evidence to the claims, to the numbers of alleged fraud or whatever. Like even like I think I even made a I think I did cover a I think I did cover an article about this, where Trump like basically admitted that he knows that this is bullshit. So I don't know if like he might acknowledge the fact that this is bullshit, but I guess like his narcissism is like, no, I won this election. Okay. In a meeting at the White House in late December of 2020, as many as 20 House Republicans erupted in applause after Pence told them to get your evidence together and assured them we will get our day in Congress with an opportunity for all the evidence to be heard before the election would be certified. So again, like this dude, like he's admitting like in previous statements that he knows that this is all bullshit. And he knows that this is all bullshit, and yet has decided, for whatever reason, to pursue this dog and pony show, right? Like this dude is just as culpable, and has as much responsibility. Pence told investigators he was still then very open to the possibility that there was voter fraud in the election. He was focused on following the facts and law. But like you just said, that you knew that these are crackpot lawyers making crackpot legal theories. At the same time, Trump was privately pressing Pence to reject certain votes at the January 6th proceeding and block certification of the election, and Trump even suggested to Pence that perhaps he should skip the session altogether. Pence allegedly told Smith's but according to the sources, Pence told investigators that he clearly and repeatedly emphasized to Trump that rejecting certain votes would violate the Constitution. I told him I thought there was no idea more un-American than the idea that one person should decide what electoral votes count. To count, Pence allegedly told Smith's team, echoing what he had said before in his book and other public forums. I made it very plain to him it was inconsistent with our history and tradition. Pence insisted that in America, under the Constitution establishing 3 co-equal branches of government, election disputes are resolved by courts and elected lawmakers. But the sources said even with pressure on Pence mounting, he concluded on Christmas Eve, just for a moment, that he would follow Trump's suggestion and let someone else preside over the proceedings on January 6th, writing in his notes that doing otherwise would be too hurtful to my friend. Coward. Voter fraud on the Republican side. Yeah, there were some cases of voter fraud. I mean, even then, like the amount of actual voter fraud was not out of the ordinary. Like the amount of actual individual voter fraud was nowhere out of the ordinary. Just like every election. It's always on the right too. Yeah, like all these massive, the stories that do make headlines, it's always like Republicans trying to test the system or whatever. It's always Republicans trying to vote with their dead, parents or whatever. It's true. Like the overwhelming amount of voter fraud cases, to the extent that existed, most of them, the overwhelming amount was Republicans. Not feeling like I should attend the electoral count, Pence wrote in his notes, too many questions, too many doubts, too hurtful to my friend. Therefore, I'm not going to participate in the certification of the election. Yeah, whatever, dude. You can't simultaneously say that you understand that you have A, no power, B, uh you knew that that these were crackpot legal theories and you decided to still entertain them. But yeah, I guess, not to hurt your friend. In the case of the husband who voted for Trump and murdered his wife for her vote, or more recently stealing students' identities in their own family. Yeah. Yeah. And even then, like the reason why you hear of these cases is because it's so rare that like when it does happen, it makes news. And also, every one of these people were caught and are now facing felonies, right? There was a recent story where a candidate's wife helped a large number of Hispanic voters fill out their ballots. Yeah, I think, I think we covered it, didn't we? I think it was like 52 counts of attempted voter fraud or something to that effect. She was found guilty of 52 counts. Is that the same story? Couldn't remember if it was you or James that covered it. It could have been both of us. We both might have talked about it. Was it the one with the 52 counts? Then sitting across the table from his son, a Marine while on vacation in Colorado, his son said to him, "Dad, you took the same oath I took. It was an oath to support and defend the Constitution." Pence recalled to Smith's investigators. That's when Pence decided he would be at the Capitol of January 6th, after all, according to the sources. Smith's federal indictment against Trump filed in August repeatedly refers to Pence, including Trump's unsuccessful efforts to enlist him. The indictment says Trump's claim of outcome determinative. The indictment says Trump's claims of outcome determinative fraud in the election were false, and Trump knew that they were false, in part because of Pence, who personally stood to gain by remaining in office, already told Trump that he had seen no evidence of outcome determinative fraud. Nonsense from Trump and the Dawn, everyone voting only for the same day, counting over 155 million votes on one day. Really? Yeah, I mean, they tried whatever BS, they tried. But, yeah. Was a large number. I don't remember the exact value. Was it this one? It's a Vietnamese person. As during COVID, it took 4 days to confirm Biden won and people dancing in the street all over the world. Take that, GOP. Yeah, I mean, like, most people are celebrating the fact that Trump was gone, not necessarily Biden. I believe that this is what you were talking about, yeah? Yeah, I think so. Ali with the 12 biddies, thank you. Trump handling Hamas? Gotta run. See you later. Thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate it. Senior White House attorneys, senior Justice Department officials, senior staffers on Trump's campaign officials at the Department of Homeland Security and state and federal courts across the country had offered similar assessments to Trump. But Trump repeated the claims of widespread election fraud anyway to, among other things, create an intense national atmosphere of mistrust and anger. In his public statements on the morning of January 6, Trump directed supporters to the Capitol to obstruct the certification proceeding and exert pressure on Pence. After it became public on the afternoon of January 6th that the vice president would not fraudulently alter the election results, a large and angry crowd, including many individuals whom the defendant had deceived into believing the vice president could and might change the election results, violently attacked the Capitol and halted the proceedings. According to the sources, when Trump spoke with Smith's teams earlier this year, he said Trump's words that morning didn't help, and he said that Trump acted recklessly as the Capitol was under siege. But Pence also said that he will never believe Trump meant for January 6th to become violent. That's kind of irrelevant, right? It's like, I don't know. I didn't think, and I didn't want it to become violent. I just made everything possible for that outcome to be the most probable outcome. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was cheering for them to hang Mike Pence. Yep. I mean, like, how unambiguous is that, right? Trump has pleaded not guilty in the case and denied any wrongdoing. He recently accused Pence of making up stories about me, which are absolutely false. That's witness intimidation, but okay. I never said for him to put me before the Constitution, Trump posted on his social media platform. Mike failed badly on calling out voter fraud in the 2020 presidential election, i.e., he didn't do what I wanted. A spokesperson for Trump told ABC News that tens of millions of Americans, including Vice President Pence, has, as he repeatedly stated himself, have grave and serious concerns about the legitimacy of the rigged and stolen presidential election. And Mike Pence is like, wait, whoa, I didn't say that. Phenomenal stuff happening. Again, Trump and the GOP pundits still talking about it 2 or 3 years later. Yep. And they still think it was stolen, or they still perpetuate that lie. Tens of millions of Americans, including the vice president, have grave and serious concerns about the legitimacy of the rigged and stolen election, further proving that lawless indictment against President Trump should be summarily dismissed. Pence has never described the election as stolen, and in his public statements, as well as what sources have told Smith's investigators, he said that he didn't have any concerns about widespread fraud, but instead about irregularities and how the elections are managed. Okay, but how does that have to, this is performing mental gymnastics. What are you talking about? What irregularities? You have to come up with something very concrete, because that's a very serious accusation you're making, right? What irregularities about how the elections are managed? How? What are you talking about? A spokesperson for Smith and a spokesperson for Pence both declined to comment. In an overnight court filing, Trump's attorney suggested without evidence that Pence may have been under pressure to incriminate Trump when he testified before the special counsel, given the Justice Department's separate investigation into Pence's handling of classified material after leaving the White House. In January this year, Pence attorneys notified the government of a handful of documents with classified markings that were found at his Indiana home, yada, yada, yada. Okay. The potential criminal charges faced by Vice President Pence gave him an incentive to curry favor with the authorities by providing information that is consistent with the Biden administration's preferred and false narrative regarding this case, Trump attorney told Todd Blanche in a filing Monday evening that was filed with the court before the news broke regarding the details of what Pence told investigators. Blanche, in the filing, asked the judge to compel the government to hand over all information related to the government's investigation of Pence's handling of classified information, arguing it could have bearing on his credibility and bias as a potential witness against Trump. The filing could telegraph a potential strategy Trump's attorneys hope to use to undercut Pence's credibility should he be called as a witness. Jesus Christ. All right, folks. We got one more article that I have time for. Tomorrow we'll talk about the other article. Texas abortion case heard before state's highest court as more women join lawsuit. This is the lawsuit that I talked about a while ago. On Tuesday, the Texas Supreme Court considered this question: are the state's abortion laws harming women when they face pregnancy complications? The case brought by the Center for Reproductive Rights have grown to 22 plaintiffs, including 20 patients and 2 physicians. They're suing Texas, arguing that the medical exemption from the state's abortion bans are too narrow to protect patients with complicated pregnancies. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is fiercely defending the state's current abortion law and arguing that the case should be dismissed. Now, the original case started out with 5, and now last time I saw it was 20, now there's 22. And hey, this could be a good thing if they are successful. Maybe this ruling could potentially be applied to start dismantling the other anti-abortion laws if they get a favorable ruling. If they happen to get a favorable ruling. Jimmy Long, thank you for the follow. At a lively hearing in Austin on Tuesday, the full panel of Texas Supreme Court justices considered whether to apply a temporary injunction that a lower court judge ruled should be in place. That injunction would give doctors greater discretion to perform abortions when a doctor determines that a woman's health is threatened or that a fetus has a condition that could be fatal. It would make more people eligible for exceptions to Texas abortion law, but it would not overturn those laws. Liz Separate, professor at Texas Law, said during the hours-long hearing that justices seemed convinced that the plaintiffs had standing to sue, but not particularly eager to take on the substantive questions in the case. I also got a sense that some of the justices were convinced that Texas bans are contradictory and lack the kind of clarity that allows doctors to apply them in emergency situations. She says, Texan, I suppose, yeah. She says the decision could come in the next few weeks or months as soon as the justices come to an agreement. This case, I think, has become more tangled the more that the justices pulled the thread, she says, and so they have to find a way out of that tangle. Throughout the hearing, the several justices seemed to be sympathetic to the story of the patients who face difficult medical circumstances because of their pregnancies. Dr. Manny Matheson, 28, is one of the 7 new plaintiffs who joined the case earlier this month. She is in her medical residency as an OBGYN and comes from a family of physicians. So when she was pregnant in 2021 and getting a detailed ultrasound test at 18 weeks gestation, she knew something was very wrong. Matheson said that watching the monitor as a sonogram technician did the anatomy scan, she saw something was wrong with the spine of the fetus and the heart, then the kidneys. She asked, "Can you show me that again?" But the sonographer said she would have to wait to talk to the doctor, who was actually Matheson's aunt. When she and her doctor spoke after the scan, I think asked one of the questions. She said, "Is it lethal?" And she said yes. Matheson and her husband had been looking forward to becoming parents, but now she knew that she wanted an abortion and could come and would have to travel outside of Texas to get it. Like, you see how, like, bullshit this is? This idea, this argument that, like, oh, well, they're just killing babies. And, like, oh, they just want to escape consequences of having sex or whatever bullshit. Well, no, these people wanted the kid, okay? It is heartbreaking. These people wanted the kid. This is September of 2021 before the federal high court overturned the constitutional right to an abortion for the whole country. But after Texas law known as SB 8 went into effect, SB 8 banned most abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy. It says anyone helping someone to get an abortion could be sued. Doctors could lose their medical licenses. Matheson said she didn't know where to start with calling clinics out of state and figuring out flights, rental cars, hotels. Her mother is also a doctor and she took charge. My mom says, like, just take a Xanax, I will have it figured out when you wake up. Matheson's mother made arrangements for her to have the procedure in New Mexico. It is not technically illegal under the Texas law, although some counties are trying to ban travel through them for abortions. But Matheson remained worried, knowing that SB 8 aims at people who help patients get abortions. It's sometimes called the bounty hunter law. Right. There was this tiny goblin in the back of my head going, your mom's going to jail for this. Well, no, she'd be eligible to be sued. Not necessarily jail. They want every single pregnancy to come to term, even if the child would suffer. Yeah, like, regardless. Like, oh, the mother dies, it doesn't matter. Oh, the fetus has, like, a completely lethal medical condition that it's not going to survive. Too freaking bad. Matheson was able to go to New Mexico for an abortion. Some of the other plaintiffs were not able to travel. 2 developed sepsis while waiting for a Texas hospital to approve this procedure. One had such severe blood clotting, her limbs began to turn purple. Yeah. Texas Attorney General Paxton has not responded to multiple requests for NPR for comment on the new plaintiffs, but in filings, lawyers argue for the state argue that these women were not harmed by the state's abortion law. They said that the law is clear, the exception is sufficient as is, and suggest that the doctors are responsible for any harms that the patient claims. Obviously, it's not. If the doctors are too scared to do basic, like, medical intervention, then no, it's not clear. And besides, you've put in these chilling effects that would prevent doctors from making rational decisions in the first place. Because, like, not only could they face potential jail from the 6-week ban, but also they could face their license being taken away. They can also face that 10,000 bounty lawsuit. I mean, like, this is, this is serious, and I don't necessarily blame the doctors for having to, like, make these decisions or lack thereof. I mean, ideally, of course, they would just, like, put the patient's health first, regardless of what the freaking law says. But I understand. We live in a capitalist system, and this is the cards we have to play with. Yeah, freedom to tie your doctor's hands. On Tuesday, Beth Klusman of the Texas Attorney General's office and Molly Duane of the Center of Reproductive Rights presented their cases and were peppered with questions from the justices. The body is made up of 9 elected justices who serve staggered 6-year terms. They're all Republicans. Some have been on the state's highest court for more than a decade. Some are recently elected. There are a few possible ways they could rule. They could uphold the lower court's injunction until the case can be fully heard. In April, this would broaden the medical exemption to abortion bans in Texas at least until the spring. They could leave the status quo in place with a narrow medical exception and say the case should be heard in full until April. They could leave the status quo in place, letting the narrow exception to the law stand, and signal that they believe Texans will win on the merits, likely prompting a motion to dismiss the case in the lower court. Oof. This case has grown over the course of 2023. In March, there were only 5 patients and 2 OBGYNs who were the plaintiffs in the case. In May, there were 13, and now there are 20 plus the 2 OBGYNs. Matheson said joining the lawsuits is important to her. I don't just have a sad story, but I'm doing something with that sad story. And there are also a happy coda for Danny Matheson. She's about 30 weeks into a healthy pregnancy. See, like these people weren't like trying to just abort, the fetus for the sake of aborting. Okay, it's a very serious decision. And these fuckers want to take away your right to bodily autonomy. Even if they weren't interested in having a kid, that's okay too. Yeah, 100%, 100%. But like at least one of the arguments is like, well, they should just have to suffer the consequences of having sex. But like, dude, they wanted the baby. That's the only reason I'm bringing that up, because a lot of like conservatives like to bring up the fact that like. You should just be forced to go through a pregnancy, and like that's it. You shouldn't be. There's no self-determination. You have no right to self-determination. You have no right to bodily autonomy. Effectively, things happen, and people should have better access to contraception. Right? Like, and things happen. Right? So basically, they're saying you shouldn't be able to course correct. You shouldn't have self-determination over your life. Like by that logic, like, let's say you had an accident and you can't see from like your right eye or something, but there is medical intervention that would allow you to see. Their logic would dictate that, like, well, it just happens, so you shouldn't get that intervention to like. To do that. Like, that's basically what the logic is. It's absurd, is what it is. Just make this fetus suffer, make the pregnant person suffer, make their partner suffer. Man, it just sounds like cruelty and control is at the heart of this, huh? Almost. That's right, because my religion says so. I say if you don't believe in abortion is something you want to do, don't do it. Right, exactly. Hey, cool, awesome. If you believe that so strongly and that's your choice to make, then like, yeah, go for it. Like, nobody should stop you. Like, why would you be wrong for doing that? Like, if you firmly believe that and that's what you want for you, then like nobody should stop you, right? The same goes if like, listen, if abortion is like what you want, whether it's like a choice or there's like a medical intervention that's necessary, like that's your choice to make. And if that's the choice you want to make for your life and for your self-determination, then like so be it, right? These people are convinced that they're crusaders for innocent little babies. That's right. It is a beyond absurd. It just doesn't make any sense other than like if you put it through the perspective like this is all just fundamentally about control. Cruelty and control is the name of the game, huh? Because they don't see women as people. All right, folks. We did it. We got through everything and smooth sailing. Tomorrow we have a few. I'll make an Alfredo. Oh shoot! I believe we're having pasta as well. We made it, folks. Smooth sailing. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. I appreciate it. Thank you for the subscriptions. Thank you for the follows. Thank you for the biddies. I appreciate it. Thank you, Ground Level News, for the Prime sub. I appreciate it. Thank you, Heat. Thank you, Alio, for the biddies. I appreciate it. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to hit the follow button. It really does help us out. Join us on the YouTube and spread the word far and wide that this is the chillest place to be. We are here Monday to Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, join the Discord, okay? It's pretty nice in there, right? It's pretty nice and cozy in there. Thank you, Heat. Thank you, Michael Hasser, for keeping the chat chill. Heat with the 11th hour, 13 biddies. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Ground Level News. I appreciate it. As always, folks, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. See you. Alio with the 12th hour, 10 biddies. Thank you. Hang tight, folks. Hang tight, folks. We're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See ya. Bye-bye.